Hi, RPS SBIT chairs. I wanted to take just a moment to dive into our new retention guidelines for next year. So I'm going to share my screen and hopefully you can follow along, but feel free to reach out at any point via email or we can schedule a one-on-one to talk about the specifics. So if you head to rvaschools.net and go onto our RTI website, you can then click on SBIT. And under SBIT, there are 3 subpages. You're going to want to click on the bottom one called Retention Information. Here you'll find the elementary school as well as the middle school guidelines. So we are going to go ahead and open this one up. If you take a look, it's pretty similar to the process that we already have in place. In the first 9 weeks, if there are students that you are concerned of, you want to make sure to go ahead and notify the parents of the academic concerns. We know that there's also parent-teacher conferences scheduled at the end of the first 9 weeks. So this is also a great time to delve in and start having those conversations. If you do have student with disabilities, please note this section. You want to reconvene and review to discuss the concerns and see if there's additional accommodations or modifications that may need to be added onto the IEPs. So first quarter stays as is as far as the RPS SBIT process. The end of the second 9 weeks is where we've made a few tweaks. So as you can see, I've got it highlighted here in yellow. This is actually the first notification that will be going home to parents, sharing that there will be a potential retention. And there is a principal letter that we have given out for the district that we'll kind of dive into in just a moment. Additionally, you are going to want to schedule a second parent-teacher conference to discuss these concerns. So you can build off the use of our RPS SBIT plan or your SOC where you identified the concerns. And then, once they're identified as needing tier 3, they'll get their student intervention plan. This is a time where you can talk more in depth about the specifics of what the family as well as the school will be doing. And then, of course, answer any questions that they have about the retention process. Third quarter, continue to progress monitor. We know we're using our spreadsheets right now, but eventually we will be moving to Educlaimer/Illuminate. Fourth quarter is when the second notification will go home, and this is just a follow-up letter to parents. Again, this is not a first time that they're hearing this. They've already received one formal letter and one formal communication via parent-teacher conference. So this is a second one, and the principal will document this in their file and their retention letter will be mailed. So we'll get into some of the other specifics that will be going in the students' files in just a moment. You can see it's got the RTI process as well as the 2 SBIT forms that we're already familiar with linked here for you to use. And then it is advised to write down whatever happens or whatever's spoken about from the parent-teacher contact in the retention file as well. There are some considerations for special populations for ELL and students with disabilities, so please make sure you take a look at those and reach out to your specialists as needed with any questions that you may have. So that's the overarching process, but now let's go ahead and dive in and take a look at how you will be scoring for retention guidelines. This is our holistic scoring guide for making decisions on possible promotions, retention, or summer school options. So we have included data and varying spreadsheets that you can use as measures on students' progress towards mastery of the language arts as well as the math standards. There are also boxes to check for readiness and capacity, thinking of behavior as well as SEL components too. So let's go ahead and take a look down here. This is the most important part, the achievement and the continuous improvement section. And what we'll do now is go ahead and open up the grade level placing guidelines. Again, this is for K-5. Middle school is the same format, but of course the scoring is different. So we've got K2, 3, 5, we've got ELA, and then we've also got a section for math. So the most important thing to pay attention to is that when you're scoring on the rubric, you're going to use a 3 if they meet every criteria that's listed on the sheet. You're going to get a 2 if they're meeting at least one of the benchmarks that are identified. And if a student's not meeting any of the benchmarks, then you would, of course, score with a 1. If you have any questions on the specifics of these guidelines, again, of course, feel free to reach out and we can clarify those. The grade level math standards are rather similar for proficiency guidelines. They go into the different benchmarks that you can use, and the scoring system for a 1, 2, or 3 is the same. I do want to take just a moment to note this box. What you're going to do once you review the scores, you're going to get an achievement score as well as a readiness score. So it should be important to note that your action for achievement could be retention, whereas your action for readiness could be a promotion. So what we're really wanting to focus in and hone in on is our achievement scores, because we know that the majority of our summer school work is focusing on academics, specifically literacy. So if you have a student with an achievement score that says promote, but a readiness score that says retain, I would like to note that you will not retain purely on readiness scores. And then I think the rest of this is pretty simple. Here, as far as reading level and math level goes, you're just going to put in the same information from the charts above. I would suggest using the iReady level. So that way you're not going in, no F&P, no running records, nothing like that's needed. Just use the data that we already have. The rest of this should all be data summary points that you're pretty used to. The letter of concern for February, as well as the second letter of concern for April, is also attached, and the same data points are going to be used in that retention file. So that is a brief overview of the new system that RPS will be using. But again, feel free to reach out with any questions. Thank you, guys.